So I'm worried about the MCU. I think it's going in a pretty bad direction. Recently, Bob Iger, who's the CEO of Disney, he came out and said things that, he talked about, do we really need so many sequels? And you're going to see a lot of newness, new Avengers and things like that. And he wants to get rid of the old characters and just do away with them. I think he has this thought in his head that people love the MCU and that they're going to go see the MCU. So anything the MCU puts, and that's not the case. People go because they love the characters. So he said at some board meeting or something like that, he's like, there's 7,000 characters, a lot more stories to tell, which are true. There's a lot of good characters. And what we have to look at Marvel is not necessarily the volume of Marvel storytelling, but how many times we go back to the well on certain characters. Sequels typically do well for us. Do we really need a third or fourth, or is it time to turn onto other characters? So basically, he's saying that, do we really need an Iron Man 3 and, a Hulk, a Thor 3 and 4, things like that? Do we really need all those sequels? And to that, I say yes, if they're good. How many James Bond movies have we had? I don't know, 30? I have no idea. I stopped watching a long time ago. I'm not a huge James Bond fan, although I like the character. But yeah, just keep going. Like, how many Mission Impossibles are there? I think we're on, 7 or 8 now? And they still do well, and people like them because, they're good movies. How many Spider-Man movies have we had? We had 3 of the original, then we had 2 with Garfield, and now we're on 3 or 4 with Holland? I don't know what it is. A ton. It's because people love the character. They want to see more of the character. So yes, we should have sequels as long as they're good. Don't make bad sequels, obviously. And then he goes on to say, let's see where. This is not true. There's nothing in any way inherently off in terms of the Marvel brand. Yes, there is. There is. There has been for a while. And I've said this I did a review of Ant-Man. I said that it's pretty much, the MCU is like dying, and Ant-Man, it's not just Ant-Man, it's just most of the movies recently, and Ant-Man is just one of the worst ones of it. Think of it this way. Ant-Man is supposed to introduce, the Loki series kind of did Kang, and that's the big bad. That's like Thanos, and we're supposed to get, okay, oh man, we really want to see, this Kang character destroy the Avengers. First of all, he was defeated by a girl Loki by being stabbed, and then he's defeated by ants. So he's not that, is he a threat? No, not really. And that end scene, I couldn't remember what it reminded me of, but I finally did. The end scene, I'm going to do some spoilers, but the end scene of Ant-Man 3, they show the Council of Kangs, and they're all like, there's like thousands of the actor, I think Jonathan Majors is his name, like raising, oh yeah, screaming, all that. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Spawn from the 90s, when he goes to hell, and there's a million different spawns, and they basically look like they shot a bunch of them and put them behind a green screen and just kind of added them there, and they're all like yelling and screaming. It's a terrible scene. But that's what it reminded me. This looked really, really bad. It looked bad. But anyways, I talked about how Ant-Man 3 is not doing very well. And some people are like, oh, it made hundreds of millions of dollars. Of course it's doing well. What's wrong with you? I'm like, it's probably going to lose money or barely break even. And you don't make a movie to break even. You make a movie to make a lot of money, especially since the previous ones did. So here. The production budget of Ant-Man 3, Quantumanium, is $200 million. Now, originally it was supposed to be less than that, but they had to do a bunch of reshoots and put over 200. 200 million. To give you perspective, 200 million is what they spent on like Infinity War, and I think Endgame was slightly more than that. So they spent a lot, and things are a lot more expensive. And I try to explain to people, because here is Quantumanium. So you're looking at it right now. It's, going into its 4th weekend, and it's at 450. And people are like, oh, well, that's great. It made a ton of money. No, it didn't. It's probably not going to make any money because what you end up having to do is you have to include marketing. And marketing is usually the same size as the production. So if the production's 200, then marketing is going to be about 200. And here is Marvel Studios saying, that they do 200 plus for Avengers Endgame, which is 50 more than they usually spend on their movies. So they usually, back then, they would spend, 150 on a movie. But also back then, the production budgets of, like, let's see, back then probably been like Thor 2 and stuff like that, was around 150. The reason why Endgame was more on their marketing budget was because Endgame cost more to make. So, once again, it's probably going to be this 150, 200 million just marketing it. Then the theaters take a cut. A studio might make about 60% of the film's ticket sales in the United States and around 20-40% of that overseas. The percentage revenue depends on the contracts. Each contract is different. There you go, 60% roughly in the United States and maybe 40%. Let's just say 50% elsewhere and 50% here, somewhere around there. So you add that 200 and say it's another marketing's 200, that's 400. Then they only get half this. You do that math, right? Half this currently worldwide, the whole thing, everything, even if they get roughly around half, right? Maybe here domestic is 60, but here's like 40, whatever, let's call it half. You're looking at about, 225 million. That barely covers their production. Doesn't cover their marketing budget. So they're probably going to lose money because at this trajectory, they are going down fast. Second weekend, 70, 60% drop from all these. So yeah, they're dropping fast. If you compare it to like Ant-Man and the Wasp, this made 622. The first Ant-Man made, 520. But the production budget was 130 for the first Ant-Man. Let's see if it has in here. I think this production budget was around 150 for the second Ant-Man. But they didn't drop nearly as fast, right? Instead of 70, it dropped by 60. Instead of, what was the second weekend? 60%. Instead of 60%, it's dropping by 43%. So it's dropping slower. Ant-Man 3 was actually the fastest Marvel movie to drop below 1 million for a showing, for a day. As you can see here, its most recent sale was 700,000 for a Thursday, down at the very bottom. So that's where it's at. It's dropping faster than the other Ant-Mans. I predict that it's, it's probably, so by day 21, it's making 100, it's at 190 million. It did have the biggest opening that it did for an Ant-Man film. Day 21, let's see, it's at 174 for the second one, so slightly under. And then day 21 was at 140. But I think it's domestic or internationals is pretty low. See, it's at international. Yeah, it's not doing very well. It's doing 233 so far, and this one did 406, and this one did 339. So internationally, it's not doing very well. I know there's like a lot of things going on with China, and things like, and China is usually a big portion of that. So to go back to the point of there's nothing inherently off in terms of the Marvel brand. 100% disagree. There's things not doing. It's not doing well. Especially when this movie cost, way more than the first one and a lot more than the second one. You expect to make a lot more money. And people aren't going back to seeing it. Like I said, it was the fastest movie to drop below $1 million. It dropped it by day 18. $1 million in the box office. So let's go back here. I think we have to look at characters and stories we are mining and look at the trajectory of Marvel over the next 5 years. You're going to see a lot of newness. We're going to turn back to the Avengers franchise, 5 and 6, but with a whole set of different Avengers. So he wants to get rid of all the old Avengers. Gone. So we're going to get all new. I don't know if that means new in terms of from movie, movie 4 to movie 5, it's going to be all new. So Hulk's gone, Thor's gone, stuff like that. And they're going to keep what we have now, which is like She-Hulk and Moon Knight and Shang-Chi and maybe Captain Marvel, or maybe change it to Miss Marvel. If that's what they're going to go around, get rid of Hawkeye and get rid of, put in Kate Bishop, that kind of thing. If that's the route they're going to go. But here's what I don't think he understands is people like the characters. They They might like the actors that play them, but they're attached to the character. You can't just replace any character with someone else. You can't replace Iron Man with Ironheart and expect the same amount of people to show up. You can't replace Chris Evans Captain America with Falcon. You can't do that. Or you can't just bring in a brand new like Shang-Chi and expect him to do as well as I don't know, Thor. That's just not going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. Think of it in terms of comics. There's certain comic books that do well, right? From day one, Spider-Man was a huge hit, day one. And it's the biggest hit at Marvel. From day one it was. Now you could say certain characters need a certain writer to bring out a good side. An example is Daredevil. Daredevil was never a huge hit for Marvel. They actually got to the point where they were going to cancel the Daredevil comic books. It was a monthly magazine, and then it just started doing, it was never that good, and then it started doing worse and worse. So they tried to do different things and revamp it, different writers, different artists. It never really worked. And then they went from monthly to every 2 months, and then they were about to cancel it. But then lo and behold, a young writer named Frank Miller came along and goes, let me get a swing at it, and goes, go ahead. We're going to pretty much cancel this anyways. And instantly, when Frank Miller got involved, it became a huge hit. And then it went back to being a monthly magazine. So sometimes, yes, you need the right writer to bring out a character. But some characters just suck. I mean, how many times have they redone Captain Marvel? The girl Captain Marvel. And even the boy Captain Marvel, Captain Marvel or whatever his name is. It wasn't his initial run lasted, I think, like 60 issues. And it was, decent, but it was never like a huge seller. It wasn't like their most popular. And so sometimes, yes, you need new writers and artists to get on it to bring out a new side of the character that works. But sometimes characters just don't work. They don't ever land with people, and they're not going to work unless you change every single thing about them, and they're not even the same characters they were before. It's just, you don't know what it is. Certain characters just resonate with certain people, and that's why it works. Like Spider-Man, always going to Batman. It doesn't matter what writer and artist you put on Batman. For the most part, it always works. Certain characters just work. So those are the characters people want to see. They want to see Spider-Man. They don't want you to replace Spider-Man with someone else. Spider-Woman or, Silk or, Spider-Boy or whatever. I don't even know if there's a Spider-Boy. But they don't want you just changing out those characters for a derivative. And then they don't want also giving you a brand new character. Like Shang-Chi was popular. His comic book series lasted a long time, but he was never a huge heavy hitter. He had his fan base, but you're not going to be able to convince anyone that Shang-Chi is a more popular comic character than, say, Iron Man. And then even on screen, it just doesn't work. So saying that we're going to do new, it'd be more benefit. Yes, we should try new characters and see what works, because maybe there's some hidden gems in there that do really well, or maybe they're not very good in the comic books, but on screen they end up doing very well. That's very possible. But I don't know. I think really what they should do is they should just recast certain characters. Like actors can't play them forever, so you should. And I get it. There's a lot of risk involved when you recast, because then no one's going to be able to step in the same shoes as Robert Downey Jr. No one's going to really step in the shoes of Deadpool like Ryan Reynolds did. So you got that risk going on. But people still love the character, and that's what makes them go see it. So I don't know. I think if they're going this route where they're going to get rid of sequels and just be like, instead of doing, a character that works, a Spider-Man number, 5 or 6, instead of doing that, even though I know Sony owns Spider-Man, but instead of doing Spider-Man 5, why don't we just come up with a brand new character that we haven't put on screen before, and do that instead? It's like, no, people like Spider-Man. They want to go see Spider-Man. They don't want to see the Adventures of Cave Carson or the Green Llama, for that matter. No one wants to go see that. That book failed a long time ago, and even if you brought back the book character now, it'll still fail. No one wants to see it. I don't even know what his powers are. But the Green Llama is... You don't want to see a Green Llama movie. I mean, you're not going to spend $200 million making a Green Llama movie, that's for sure. So, but some characters do work, like Peacemaker. I never thought in a million years I would like a Peacemaker TV show, and it was fantastic. So you get the right writer and stuff like that. You can make. Here's the thing: you can take a dull, unused, no one really likes character and make him fantastic. Because here's the thing: no one really likes him. So you just clean the slate clean, pick like a few things that kind of work, and then make a whole new character. But you can't like revamp Spider-Man and expect, I mean, Spider-Man is what he is. He works the way he works. So you don't change it. He works. And he's worked for almost 100 years. Same with Superman and Batman. There's certain core ideas that just work with certain people. And once you find that, you keep that the same way. Because it's going to work for generations to come. Because as much as people think they're different, we're generally all the same. And we'll always all be the same. Obviously their jobs will change and the surroundings around us will change, but there's something in human beings that if it worked for someone 100 years ago, it'll probably work for someone today. So, yeah, that's all. Let me know what you think down below. Let me think if you're excited for this new MCU. I can always tell there's going to be a bunch of people that are not going to be excited for this new MCU. I used to think, oh, it's just because I'm getting older and whatever, but I'm like, I don't think so. Because, yeah. I don't think that's it. I guess if I didn't even know the MCU and I was like 8 years old and I just came into the MCU for the first time, I wouldn't know any different. But I don't know. I think Marvel has a big problem on their hands. I think Guardians 3 will do really well because there's a lot of fans for that, and I think James Gunn has proven himself to make good films because that's what really matters. You want to make good films. He's a good writer, good director, good filmmaker. Just like the Russo brothers, just like Jon Favreau. Oh my gosh, Jon Favreau. I mean, he gave us Iron Man, and then he gave us The Mandalorian. I think both are fantastic. So I think it's more choice of who they have as writers and directors is the issue. And they're not very good. Because honestly, I don't know anyone who's looking forward to Kang. Like the fact that if you watch every other reviewer show and they kept on saying, oh, Jonathan Majors did a fantastic job. Okay, yes, he said the lions fell and all that kind of stuff, but his character is not convincing as bad. I don't even know what his motivations are. Don't try to convince me that Kang seems anywhere close to the threat as Thanos. He doesn't even think... Kang to me, at least in this iteration in the MCU, is about as big as a threat as Gore the Butcher. Right? Like easily defeated. He's just, give me any of those, Whiplash. No, Whiplash was never, no, that was a bad choice. I don't know, just pick out MODOK, right? Literally, I have no, he doesn't seem like a threat at all. The only possible way you can go is make this like super sci-fi where the villain doesn't have to be like super strong or anything. It's just the way the sci-fi stuff goes. More his gadgets, I guess. I don't know. I just don't see like, I would say Kang is probably a low-level Marvel villain threat, at least in this iteration. And so no one's excited about it. It's not going to be very good. It's going to be... Avenger 5 is going to come out. It could be a good movie. Could be. But as far as a threat, he's not Thanos level threat at all. Not even close. He's not even the Living Planet. Was it not Igor? By Kurt Russell. What the hell is his name? Ego, the Living Planet. That was a bigger threat. I can't think of all the villains that he went up against. Yondu. Basically, even though Yondu is a good guy, he's the same threat as Yondu. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a threat at all. I'm sorry. The Kang character, he got beat by ants and he got stabbed by a girl who didn't really have any powers, I don't think. I can't remember. But, yeah. Average person. You take away his gadgets. He's just a normal man. He's about as threatening as me. I mean, obviously, he knows probably more kung fu than I do or something, but that's about it. And the Avengers are superhuman. So the ants took away his gadgets like that. Literally like that. He had his little force shield, his little force field, and then the ants just like bulldozed right over it. And didn't MODOK like fall into it as well? And then the ants just picked him apart like nothing. Like, what is he going to do against the Hulk? put up his force field and the Hulk just busts through it. But they're getting rid of the Hulk because literally says all new Avengers, so the Hulk's gone. You know what they really should do? This is what they should do. If Bob Iger is listening, sorry, I'm just ranting at this point. Even though they showed Hulk's son, make a movie where somehow they bond, even though he looks ridiculous, Hulk's son. Somehow they bond, make Mark Ruffalo have this kind of connection. I don't know how, but don't just say they have a connection. That's the worst thing to do. Don't say, hey, we had a connection. We really bonded. Don't do stuff off screen. Show on screen that they really bonded. Some movie, maybe somehow Hulk's son saves Mark Ruffalo's life somehow, even though he's the Hulk, so he can't die. Something. I don't know. Make some emotional scene. Then he dies at the end. And that's somehow sets off something in Mark Ruffalo where he just goes crazy. And then we get the real Hulk, not the dad next door Hulk, not the I go to all my kids' soccer games and we have picnics on the weekend at the park Hulk. I don't want that Hulk. I want angry Hulk. I want World War Hulk. That's what I want. And then he kills all the current superheroes in this universe, destroys the universe. And then Doctor Strange has to merge, kind of like Rick and Morty, where they went to another universe that's very similar to theirs. Doctor Strange has to merge this universe with another universe. That's what it should do. And then we get all new actors playing Iron Man, Captain America, stuff like that. That's what we should do. There you go. I gave you perfect. And that should be Avengers like 6 and 7, World War Hulk. And then we can get some like X-Men in there. And obviously he destroys all them. All right.